here.
Interesting.
And then from what I've seen, I think she still lives today, and the only thing left as far as most recent history that she sold like her apartment or something in 2014 or something, and living with her current husband. So I think I'm guessing she's like in her 80s or maybe
Probably
90s or something of the sort. But yeah, her history is a little bit interesting.
Welcome to Go Kaiju Show, where we have a healthy obsession with kaiju. I am your co-host, Kent, and with me is your other co-host,
Jason. What's up, peeps?
We are back, and we are covering 1969's The Valley of Gwangi, with effects done by Ray Harryhausen. And I'm trying to remember, no, this is not the first Harryhausen movie we've done, because I know for a fact we've done at least The Beast from 20,000 Fathoms.
Yep.
But this maybe our second Harryhausen movie we've done.
I could have sworn that we may have done another one, but I can't quite remember because we've been doing this for 16 years. So a lot of that has been a long time.
It's been a while. Very few podcasts last as long as we do, because we got so many shenanigans that,
Even though we barely hit the 200 mark as far as like official episodes, but I mean, we're kind of melding everything into one now. So
yeah. Who's counting though? So We're doing that today, and just a heads up, the next time we come, which will be in a couple of weeks, we're going to do Reptilicus. And then kind of around the same time, we're going to be doing a show. We're not exactly sure which show yet. And depending upon what show we're doing and how many episodes that show involves, we're going to be doing a certain number of other episodes on, like, and these are just examples. These are not confirmed. Maybe doing either more commentary tracks and or discussions on movies like, for example, King Kong versus Godzilla, the Japanese cut, or something like that. Just so that way it gives us enough time to work on whichever show it is we're doing, and then we can come back and either cover the show in one podcast or in 2 or 3, depending upon, again, the length of said show that we are looking to do. So, with all that being said, Jason, the usual housekeeping.
Yeah, if you can see down below there, make sure to like and subscribe to our YouTube channel and wherever you're watching us from, Rumble and all that stuff. And you can see all the streaming options that we're available on currently, both video and audio versions. And follow us on the following social medias down below. And you can find both video and audio versions of our own episodes at our website down below. You can see right there the URL, gogokaijushow.com.
All right, so before we get going, I wanted to share a couple recent purchases. One of these I should have shared the last time we had a podcast because I got it earlier in the month. So that one I'm going to share first. Both of these are the Movie Monster Series collections from Bandai. Got them off of Godzilla.com.
If the final version of Kent's video feed is pretty clear on
my end, both videos are crystal clear. So
from my end, it's pretty pixelated.
Then you need to get better internet.
Or you, because I got fiber optic.
I got Xfinity, and we updated the darn thing like 8 years ago with faster upload and download speeds. But anyway, to stop the dick measuring contest.
Yeah.
This bad, for lack of a better term, it's called, on the Godzilla.com website, it's called Godzilla the Art Limited Edition. I'm calling it the Godzilla Prototype. For those of us who have been paying attention to Godzilla history and looked in books and all that stuff over the years, we will recognize this version of the 54 Godzilla in a lot of promo stills. And I always thought this version was kind of cool, like a little prototype. You got kind of the mushroom head, which definitely was a part of the original design to be a metaphor for the mushroom cloud of the 2 atomic bombs dropped on Japan. And I remember there was a figure like this that did come out, like a certain number of years ago, maybe within the last 2 years or so. And it sold out pretty quick. And then all of a sudden I got an email one day saying that Gazelle.com had this. And so I'm like, yes, I'm not going to think about it. I'm going to buy it. So I quickly snatched it up, got it. Here it is. I really like it. Really cool. And then this other one I just got today.
Speaking of which, I was kind of hoping that prototype version of the figure would be a little bit larger. I was kind of hoping it would be.
See, you like the larger stuff. I like the ones that are that size just because obviously if you take a look at some like my room here, I've got limited space. So the smaller, the better, which means I can put more crap on it.
I was kind of thinking maybe at least 8 to 10 inches. Because that one's a 6-incher, right?
You know what? It might be. We'll say yes.
Yeah, it kind of looks like so.
This one I thought was going to be bigger. The giant condor, or Ukanduro, I believe is like the official Japanese name. The giant condor. This was voted by the fans, and so Bandai was like, "That's stupid, but we'll make it because you voted for it." Yeah. So, giant condor from the movie that introduced both you and I to Godzilla versus the Sea Monster, Ebirah, Horror of the Deep. Just a giant condor. Nothing too special about it, but again, it's like I said, it's from a movie that introduced you and I to Godzilla officially, so it holds a special place in my heart. And so those are two new things that I got. So without further ado, let's move into 1969's The Valley of Gwangi. I will start off with a plot synopsis here. I remember that.
Yeah, that's why I did it.
All right. The movie opens with Carlos barely escaping a valley with his life and a mysterious creature in his possession. A short time later, Tuck Kirby. By the way, it makes me wonder if the writers for Jurassic Park 3 used the last name Kirby for the William H. Macy character in Tia Leone as sort of an homage to this. I can't say officially, but I happen to notice that. I'm like, I wonder if maybe the writers were a
coincidence, I would say.
Yeah. A short time later, Tuck Kirby, the former love interest of T.J. Breckenridge, comes to town to see her circus show that is run by her guardian Champ, and their crew, which also includes Carlos. But the show has fallen on hard times with small crowds attending it, and Tuck attempts to buy T.J. out for the Buffalo Bills Wild West show. T.J. isn't oh crap, I've lost my space. TJ isn't interested as she believes what Carlos brought back from the Forbidden Valley will bring her and her crew fame and fortune. That thing that she believes will bring them that fame and fortune is a Eohippus, a miniature prehistoric horse. But a gypsy camp led by Tia Zorina warns them that if the Eohippus isn't returned to the Forbidden Valley, terrible things will occur. Tuck meets paleontologist Professor Bromley, who coincidentally happens to find a fossil with Eohippus tracks next to a femur bone of an ancient hominid. Bromley hopes to find more fossils in order to be able to link mankind's past with the hominids. Tuck shows Bromley the Eohippus, and Bromley is astounded. Meanwhile, the gypsies stage to break in and take the Eohippus back to the Forbidden Valley. Bromley gets wind of this and allows the gypsies to follow through, hoping to follow them to the valley in search of more prehistoric Eohippi and greater findings. But Tuck, TJ, and her crew attempt to stop the gypsies, but the gypsies succeed in releasing the miniature horse. The Cowboys follow the horse into the valley where they are met by a pteranodon that takes Lope, a small boy that initially helped Tuck get a horse and became a guide for him. But the boy's weight is just too much. But the boy's weight is too much for the flying reptile, and it lands a short moment later. Carlos jumps on the pteranodon and snaps its neck. Seconds later, the team spots a small plant-eating dinosaur nearby. They chase it until it's snatched up by an Allosaurus, the feared Gwangi. Gwangi chases the Cowboys back until a Styracosaurus appears. The two dinosaurs have a momentary standoff until they both put some distance between themselves. Gwangi then takes the pteranodon carcass and leaves the area. The team finds an elevated cave where they make camp. The next day, as Tuck is getting water from a nearby stream, Gwangi shows up again and chases him back to the camp. The Cowboys spend a bit of time attempting to corral the Allosaurus until the Styracosaurus returns. This time, the two dinosaurs fight each other, with Gwangi bloodying the Ceratopsian and leaving it for dead. As the fight was happening, the Cowboys attempt to make a break for it to leave the valley. Gwangi follows them and catches up to Carlos and kills him. Gwangi catches up with the remaining crew, but can't fit through the valley opening. As it tries to force its way through, it causes numerous boulders to collapse on top of it, knocking it out. Tuck, Champ, and TJ finally corral the dinosaur and take it back to town for the show. Tia and the other gypsies tell them once again bad things will befall them if Gwangi isn't taken back to the Forbidden Valley. During the opening of the show, Tia sends one of her gypsies to unlock Gwangi's cage. As the curtain is raised, everyone is horrified to see the gypsy being gobbled up by Gwangi. Bromley runs near the cage, but as Gwangi escapes, the heavy metal door falls on the paleontologist, killing him. Gwangi battles a circus elephant and leaves it for dead. Gwangi begins terrorizing the town until it's led into a giant cathedral. Tuck, Lope, and TJ are trapped inside with Gwangi. Tuck manages to stab the side of the head of Gwangi with a flag before the three of them flee. On their way out, Tuck throws a torch towards Gwangi and fire ensues. Gwangi is frightened and manages to knock another torch with its tail, creating a larger fire. The fire grows, and so does Gwangi's cries of fear and pain. Eventually, the dinosaur falls, succumbing to the fire, but it's not dead. Only when parts of the cathedral collapse on the crying dinosaur does its life come to an end. Outside, Tuck, Champ, TJ, and the rest of the townspeople look on as the cathedral continues to burn and the movie closes. All right. One of the things I want to point out is one of the actors, Richard Carlson. I love this actor. I know him from such films as The Creature from the Black Lagoon, It Came from Outer Space, The Magnetic Monster, Riders to the Stars. He was pretty prominent in a lot of, at least for me anyways, 50s science fiction type film. There's also a movie called Tormented. It's kind of a B type of horror comedy kind of film. It just had, I believe, like a Blu-ray release come out in the last 2 years. It's pretty unique if you're into that sort of thing. And I love Carlson. I think he is a tremendous actor. And even though he has a few bit moments here in this particular movie, I think he does a pretty good job here.
This is a guy that kind of runs the whole circus business with TJ, correct? Yeah.
Yes.
I guess I know it's, some of the movies that you listed that I've seen many years ago. I guess I just haven't really paid much attention to the guy. But as far as the leading gal in this, I kind of looked up a little bit of her history here through Wikipedia. Apparently, she didn't really know when she was born. Apparently, she was Israeli or Jewish, and both of her parents were lost in the whole Holocaust thing. So, it's, like, her history is a bit interesting, where she kind of got adopted by the city of Seattle, and then got her citizenship the year this movie came out. And apparently, this was her final film that she appeared in, and she hasn't really appeared anything else after Valley of Gwangi here.
Interesting.
And then from what I've seen, I think she still lives today, and the only thing left as far as most recent history that she sold, like, her apartment or something in 2014 or something, and living with her current husband. So I think I'm guessing she's like in her 80s or maybe
probably
90s or something of the sort. But yeah, her history is a little bit interesting.
Yeah, her and the actor who plays Carlos in this movie, their characters were even dubbed over in this movie. That's
kind of what I was thinking of myself, is that when they were talking of the two, mainly Gila Golan here, who's a lead female here, that when she was talking, it just seemed like the voice was a bit unnatural to me. It was like, I bet you anything that this was dubbed.
Yeah, they were saying that she did the lines as obviously directed to, but her accent was so thick that I think the producers thought that it just the audience was going to be kind of thrown a little bit, so they had her dubbed over. Same thing with the guy doing Carlos.
Well, I didn't think Carlos was quite the one that needed some of the dubbing, but I thought that Lope, the kid in this one, I think that probably was dubbed as well, just the way that he was.
I did not find any information on that part, but I did find that, yeah, Carlos, which I thought Carlos, for the most part, that was his original voice, but there are a couple moments, if you pay attention enough, it seems just a tad off. But yeah, like Gia, you can, like, that's very obvious she was dubbed over. Lope, I kind of thought, but like I said, I didn't see anything. That doesn't mean he wasn't dubbed over, but just nothing came up in my search.
Mm-hmm. And then, yeah, as far as some of the notes that I had in here, didn't really add a whole lot because, I mean, it's a Ray Harryhausen film. You kind of know what to expect when it comes to these sort of films. But the overall story put together for Valley of Gwangi, where it's like kind of that Western culture and then mix it in with maybe a little bit of sci-fi when it comes to the dinosaurs or something of the sort. It's kind of a unique twist and take on the whole Western and kind of the dinosaur sci-fi sort of thing, because you don't really see things like that a whole lot. I mean, you get Cowboys and Aliens some years back, and then some of the other films that can't remember right now, but it's kind of a unique way to do some movies to kind of get some interesting stories, characters, and some moments into these movies. And it was like with Valley of Gwangi, I'm not sure the last time I've seen this movie, but I do remember the famous scene with the whole Gwangi and the elephant fighting it out towards the end. I think that's the one that many people kind of remember the whole movie, and then also when it's in the cathedral there at the end with, you know, dying and stuff from the whole fire and collapse of the building and the sort.
This is, I think, the first time since 2015 or 2016 that I've seen it. I remember watching it as a little boy, and I think I was first introduced to it at our grandma's house back in the early 90s. I'm sure it was TNT because they always had these kinds of movies on. I think it was TNT or somebody else or even Encore or something like that. Somebody had it on, and I remember I watched it, and it always stuck with me. Even as a kid, you know, sometimes there are things you remember seeing, but you don't remember the name of it. I always remembered Valley of Gwangi because even though the movie, I liked it as a kid, I was not ever in love with it. And so when Warner Brothers released a DVD of it, gosh, back in like the early 2000s, because I still have that DVD that I bought like over 20 years ago, I grabbed it. And so really, I think I've seen this movie, in all honesty, like anywhere between 5 or 7 times over the years. I like it decently enough. I've never really been in love with it, but I'm not a fan of Westerns. That sort of genre just never clicked with me. It's just not my cup of tea. The couple Western things that I do like, I enjoyed. There was this short-lived 26-episode TV series back in like 64, I believe it was. It was called The Loner. It had Lloyd Bridges. I have it right here. Lloyd Bridges doing the main cowboy character. And it was done by Rod Serling of Twilight Zone fame. And so that's the reason why I checked it out, because I love Rod Serling. And it actually was pretty good series. Like it actually, I thought had a lot more depth to it than a lot of other Westerns I've seen. And then last year, I didn't finish it up, but there was the Man with No Name trilogy with Clint Eastwood. I watched the first 2 movies. I liked them okay. Was, again, not in love with them. I have not watched the final one because I saw the running time. The running time on that one's like 3.5 hours or something like that. So I need to set aside some time for that one. But otherwise, I'm just not a fan of Westerns. And this sort of idea, combining cowboys with dinosaurs, is unique. I will say, however, at bare minimum, there's at least one other movie that did this before Valley of Gwangi. Do you happen to know what that movie is? I'm sure you've heard of it, but I'm not sure if you've seen it.
Oh.
You might kick yourself if you don't get it.
Probably, but it's like as of right now, I can only think of only this movie, but I'm sure that there's something that I haven't seen for a long time. It's like a lot of these movies, with Ray Harryhausen and some of these other ones that I just haven't seen for quite some time. But just give me the name.
The Beast of Hollow Mountain. That movie was made in 1956.
I'm probably going to have to search it up.
Search it up while I talk about it for a moment here. That movie had a stop motion, I believe, Allosaurus in it as well. But it is...
What was the name again?
The Beast of Hollow Mountain.
The Beast of Hollow Mountain.
It is... Everything about that movie is so poorly done. It came with a DVD set that I had purchased back around, I think it was 2018, with 4 other films, including movies like The Neanderthal Man. And so I watched it.
I think I do remember seeing this dinosaur now, but I do remember seeing this. And this is the reason why I kind of did that whole Gwangi thing at the very beginning, because I remember Kent many years ago, I think it was in the 90s, that he got this VCR or VHS cassette tape, mainly just on
I think it was you.
Promotions. I don't know. I could have sworn it was you, but nevertheless, it was this VHS tape consisting of promos and trailers of these classic like B movies and like sci-fi
dinosaur trailers,
movies, promos, trailers, and it had Gwangi as part of it. But I do remember seeing this, The Beast of Hollow Mountain, in that whole VHS cassette tape set.
I watched it for the first time in around 2018, and let me tell you something. Everything about that movie is terrible. I
bet you anything that we're going to, one of these days,
we will cover it. No, yeah, we will. We will cover it. It's just a question of when. But at the same time, it is hilariously bad, especially once the dinosaur shows up, because it's not only ridiculously looking, it is poorly animated, and you will laugh your head off once you see that thing run. The animation used to make that thing run, it is absolutely hilarious. Like, you will laugh your head off. I will just leave it at that.
I wouldn't be a bit surprised.
But the Valley of Gwangi, my point being, is not only was this Cowboys versus dinosaur thing done before Gwangi, but Gwangi does it better. The dinosaurs, I'm going to just come right out with a compliment because it needs to be talked about. This is the reason why we are covering this movie. This is why so many of us watch these kind of movies in the first place, are the creatures. Harryhausen, again, just fantastic creature work here. Mm-hmm. The Allosaurus, Styracosaurus, the Pteranodon, the Eohippus, the I want to call it a Plateosaurus, but I don't think it is. But the small plant-eating bipedal dinosaur that they chase and Gwangi eventually catches. All those dinosaurs look fantastic. They look muscular, they're animated well, they just look fantastic. And that's something that, even though I have some qualms personally with Harryhausen, mainly his take on Japanese monster movies, where he's criticized in the past of men or actors being in suits to make creatures come to life, Harryhausen always does a fantastic job. And I just have to say, the creatures are absolutely stunning in this film.
And also with all of Ray Harryhausen's visual effects and claymation and all that,
Stop motion,
claymation, how you go about it. But they also took the time to make a life-size version of a Pteranodon for when Carlos was interacting with it there. And then also, I'm assuming it was kind of like maybe a miniature version of Gwangi when he was knocked out there. Although it was a bit, I think it was just stiff in a way.
It's a toy, essentially.
Yeah, pretty much.
That's the worst effect of that movie.
Just having someone's hand or something off screen by the tail and just kind of moving it a bit there. But I would say, as far as between both the Pteranodon and Gwangi, I think that they did a perfect job with the life-size version of the Pteranodon.
Yeah,
it would have been nice if they had the Trachiosaurus one, maybe like maybe sort of a decent size version for the actors and actresses interacting with that one.
Yeah, I'm glad you brought up the toy Gwangi, because I remember that, and that, I think, is the worst effect moment of this whole film, because it's very obvious it's a toy. It's the sort of thing you would expect kids making their own dinosaur movie to use. I thought even for a Harryhausen movie, unless it was going to be maybe very time consuming and complicated, which could be the factor, it looks bad.
But speaking of kind of the critiquing part of the visual effects and stuff, when it comes to which format to watch this film, I know Kent says he has the DVD one that he bought many years ago, and then for me, I bought the Blu-ray version within the last couple or so years. And when I was watching it, there's some times where you can definitely know when things are kind of blending in, with the stop motion and then the actual footage and stuff. Because with the ground and stuff, you can tell when things are a bit clear for the stop motion, and then like the actual footage of the whole environment and everything, and then some of the other things too. I would say probably maybe see this in the DVD version. It would probably blend things in a little bit more compared to when you upscale some of these films, because then some of that charm and with the matte screen or stop motion, all that sort of effects that they use back then probably wouldn't work well when it comes to the upscale version of the Blu-ray and the DVD thing. So yeah, I probably would prefer just seeing this film in the DVD version compared to the upscale version of the Blu-ray.
Yeah, even with the DVD, like if you look closely on the ground, for example, you can see like strips of the ground are a bit of a different color when the dinosaur is in there.
And a bit clear.
Yeah, it's not terrible. Like, it doesn't throw me for a loop. It really doesn't. And yeah, on the DVD, it looks pretty good. There's only one scene where, and I forget which one it is, but Gwangi's on the right side of the screen and like the people are on the left, and Gwangi's moving. And there were a couple seconds where some of the background behind Gwangi flickered, and you could see as it was flickering, there was this cutout portion that kind of showed up for the film, showing you the composition pieces, but that only happens for like a few seconds in one of the shots. But otherwise, it looks really good. And you and I have talked about numerous times over the course of the podcast, and then even when we had a briefly lived podcast called School and Nerd, where we only did the Rocky movies, and I watched Blu-ray versions of those films, and I remember complaining how even with those that there was a lot of grain on them. And I understand that most movies put onto Blu-ray are not true HD because they use, and I forget the term, like a quicker process to transfer it. They don't go frame by frame and try to make it pure high def. I've always been an advocate of saying that I do not personally believe films that were not filmed in HD should not be converted to HD, because not only do a lot of times you just get grain, as with you, and I've even mentioned it like with The Return of Godzilla, and I think a couple other films we've covered on here. There are scenes in some of these films where you see the seams, and that takes things away from the viewer. I think it takes them out, because I remember when we covered The Return of Godzilla and I watched that for the first time in Blu-ray format, there was one scene of Godzilla partially over part of the Tokyo skyscape, and I could easily tell with the Blu-ray it was two separate shots, and I never realized that, because for years when I watched it on the VHS and then eventually a DVD, you could never tell. And then the Blu-ray came along and it was a totally different scenario. And I'm just like, oh, like that killed it for me. And it takes me out every time I see it. Like every time I watch the Blu-ray version of that movie, I'm like, damn, like it just, it kills a little bit of the magic, which is just unfortunate. I think if you were to upscale animation, like a purely animated movie, that's one thing. But live action older films that were not originally filmed in high def, I think need to be left alone as far as just keeping them in standard def.
Well, and I know that Toho recently has been kind of getting some of the Godzilla movies upscaled to 4K. And I know back in those times, too, they had Toho scope where they kind of shot it in a specific format and kind of made for larger screens. For certain movies like that are made for larger screens and stuff, and then I know with a lot of TVs nowadays are larger screens and stuff, I probably would say that that's okay. But then, of course, with a lot of movies, probably when it comes to Valley of Gwangi and all that stuff that weren't necessarily made for big screens or upscaling and stuff, yeah, I can probably say just don't mess with a lot of the films as far as upscaling them into these high def or 4K formats.
Yeah, I mean, unless you are going frame by frame and kind of clean it up, I'm willing to at least try it, but I don't have any hope for it.
Or just try not to use AI just to try to clean things up, because I know some of those, like, I think that's what Warner Brothers did with Lord of the Rings when they were trying to upscale it for 4K, and some of the people were complaining about it. Cameron, it was a bit too smooth for it.
Cameron did it for one or both of his Terminator movies, and people complained about that too. That people were saying don't buy the Blu-ray versions of his Terminator movies because he did something similar too. Because Cameron, but the creatures in this film are just done absolutely well, and the special effects are pretty fantastic as well. I will say the sound design for all the creatures is really good too. And I remember, again, I think I've said this before on this podcast, as a kid, I always rooted for the Predator type creatures.
Of course.
And then now I've gotten older, I'm like, no, bunny rabbit, get away from the fox, get away from the fox. Like, I don't want to see the bunny rabbit getting eaten. It like really bothers me anymore when I see something like that, even in a fake movie like this, where the Styracosaurus and Gwangi are fighting each other, and it gets brutal in a few points, including like he takes a chunk out of the Styracosaurus. I'm like, motherfucker, like what a way to go. Like, that's brutal. And then you not only hear the Styracosaurus cries and you see the chunk of flesh being taken out, but later on, well, even before that, you hear the little dinosaur getting crunched up by Gwangi after it's being chased by the cowboy. And then later on, with the circus elephant, the cries of the circus elephant as it's being, carved up by Gwangi. I'm just like, oh, man, like that gets to you. And then Gwangi's cries at the end, too. Oh, man, like, they were getting at me in this movie.
As far as, talking about the sound effects in here, or sound design, my little critique when it comes to this whole thing was the elephant roar, cry, and all that stuff, or how it just felt a bit unnatural to me. It would have been
the regular sound is weird.
Yeah, it would have been nice if they would have gone out, find an actual elephant, and took the time to record some of the sounds from an actual elephant there, just to make it a bit more natural and believable in that regard. But speaking of sound, as far as the score for the film, to me, kind of gives it kind of like, I would say, a blendish of Western and sci-fi film scores from like the 50s and 60s in that regard. And I think it's a bit of a unique score or take kind of to go along with kind of this Western / sci-fi-ish film that, and it kind of blends in with a lot of the Ray Harryhausen stuff, the kind of the music that you would hear from his movies. So you kind of, like I said earlier, you kind of know what to expect when it comes to Ray Harryhausen films.
Yeah, you talk about the score. I found the main theme to be okay. It seemed like it was kind of the same couple of notes just being repeated. I wasn't that impressed with it. And yeah, I thought Western, it came off as a Western type of score, which I mean is fine because that's kind of what this film is, more or less. But I was not impressed with the overall score. I didn't think that there was much of a variety of tracks for this. And again, I didn't look up as far as like what the production time of this was. I know stop motion obviously takes a while, but even then, films like this were kind of considered B movies to some extent. And so a lot of these films didn't quite have the budget and therefore usually had quick turnaround times from being greenlit to when they were supposed to get released. So I'm willing, if it is true that maybe this movie had a short production time, I'm willing to essentially forgive that because you got to cut corners somewhere. I would rather cut corners in my music score than in the effects if I'm given the option.
Yeah. Speaking of production time, let me check up an AI thing and just kind of ask it a question and see what was.
Speaking of AI,
on this.
While you're doing that, I just have to say I want to dive into the character stuff here for a moment, but I just have to get this out before I forget. Professor Horace Bromley, considering he's a paleontologist, someone with a PhD, he's a moron because.
For some reason, he also kind of I think he was sort of inspired by the one Professor Lee guy. I forget the name of the Jurassic Park franchise. The old guy with the beard and all that stuff.
Hammond?
Hammond. He kind of, to me, he kind of sort of is inspired by this professor in a way.
I don't think so. Because this guy's an idiot. And you want to know how he's an idiot? It's the sequence when they find the elevated cave and then Tuck goes to dig a hole and he puts all this vegetation over the hole. It's clear as day that there is vegetation there covering a hole. And it's the only vegetation in this little area. But then Tuck decides instead of going around it, even if he thought it was legitimately shrubs, he decides to walk through it rather than going around it.
Mm-hmm.
I don't quite understand that. It's the movie's cheap way of trying to get a laugh, but it makes the character stupid.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, so I got an answer here through Copilot here, and it says that there isn't a specific formal production time for this, but they say as far as the project's original date, that the Valley of Gwangi project originated decades earlier under Willis O'Brien, who developed the concept long before his death in 1962. And then it says Ray inherited the project and completed all the stop motion animation, which historically required many months of frame by frame work. And then obviously the film was released in 1969. And that it says meaning principal photography and animation likely occurred in the mid to late 60s, consistent with Harryhausen's typical multi-year production cycles. And it says as far as his duration of production, that it often takes Harryhausen 1 to 2 years from start photography through completion of animation, and so on and so forth. So it's been sort of years in making before it was released.
Well, and the funny thing is like, I saw today on Facebook, one of my friends had posted, I believe it was a picture drawn by Harryhausen of an Allosaurus confronting a cowboy. And that picture was drawn by Harryhausen like 20 or so years earlier, something like that, which is kind of interesting considering we're covering Gwangi today.
That could be part of it. I would not doubt it.
But I realized watching this movie for this podcast, none of the characters, I mean, first and foremost, let's just get it out of the way. None of these characters are written all that well. They're surface level characters. They're archetypes, which is fine because we're here for the dinosaurs.
I would say they're far better compared to the characters in Space Wamagui.
Oh, that goes without saying.
Yeah.
But
light years better.
But I will say this. The characters being just, plain Jane is not a surprise. But what I found a bit surprising was that really there are no characters that are rootable. Like, you realize all these characters are kind of devious and greedy and kind of willing to backstab other people to some extent. For
themselves in a way.
More or less.
It's kind of what you see in a Western film back in those times.
Right. But with a movie like this, usually they try to portray the dinosaur as being a villain, which I don't like because a dinosaur is just an animal. It's just an animal trying to like protect itself and or survive. So it's not a villain. It's just doing its thing. But none of the characters here are rootable. Like Carlos, you can't root for. They end up killing him. Like even TJ, you don't root for her because she's exploiting the Eohippus and eventually the
Gypsies too.
The Gypsies, yeah, they seem to be the closest thing to a good guy in this movie until Tia sends one of her gypsies to go unlock the cage door to Gwangi. It's like, okay, well, now you're responsible for whatever happens from this point on. But who knows? Like, even if they didn't do that, more than likely TJ and her crew eventually probably would have been responsible for the deaths of some people, because I think for a predatory dinosaur, it's just a matter of time before it gets out and starts doing its thing. Tuck is greedy, even though they try to create this love story, which is unnecessary and poorly done. He's out for money and all that. Champ is just an asshole. There's nobody, like even Professor Bromley is out for himself too. He's out not really for money, but for findings, and is willing to backstab people and even hurt other people to get what he wants. So there's no real like good characters in this
I would
film.
say except for Lopi, the kid.
Yeah, because he's a dumb kid who nearly gets himself killed in like two scenes. But I don't know, like maybe that enriches the movie a little bit more, perhaps for some people. But I just think, and again, let's just face it, this is not high art. It's fun. It's unique. And so for a movie kind of like this, I would like sort of a clear-cut black and white, having some good characters. I'm not saying they got to be Boy Scouts. That's not what I'm saying. But, good guys, And I realize there's nobody here that's, I would, if my son watched this movie, I would not at all say to him, well, be like James Francisca's here, who is Tuck. No. Like his character is a jerk. I mean, they all are. And I would not be like that person. I'd be like, yeah, just ignore what everyone's doing here and just watch the dinosaurs. Like just have fun with it for the sake of having fun.
Right.
But yeah, I'm not a fan of that. But anyway, that's just me maybe nitpicking.
Yeah. So otherwise, I don't really have much to add on to the film. So I'm just kind of ready for my final take and grade.
Well, I want to talk about the pacing and kind of the runtime of the movie. I was kind of surprised this movie runs at 96 minutes.
I was kind of surprised at that too.
Yeah.
Even though when I was watching it, that it felt like it wasn't quite the hour and a half. It felt a bit longer than that.
It felt a bit longer because it takes us approximately 50 minutes to get to the Forbidden Valley. And sadly, this is how, even in Harryhausen movies, this is how it is, where it takes a long time, usually, not always, but usually, to kind of get to the creatures or the dinosaurs in question. If you didn't like the slow build up to this, you will hate The Beast of Hollow Mountain, because that movie is like an hour 15, hour 20. You only see the dinosaur for the final 5 or 10 minutes of that movie. That movie, if you talk about a movie that feels longer than it is, you will hate that movie with a passion.
even though it's a bit shorter than this film.
Gwangi is like head and 5,000 shoulders above that movie.
It's heavy compared to that one.
Yeah, the less said about that one, the better. But we're gonna watch it at some point. But it does drag because, again, you just don't have a ton of exciting moments prior to the buildup of entering the Forbidden Valley. And the characters, even with a really good actor like Richard Carlson, who is mainly a supporting actor in this film, there's just not enough depth and story to kind of carry us up until the point they enter the valley. And I almost wonder if some of that is for padding purposes, because I think they understood, look, it's cowboys versus dinosaurs. Like, what much is there?
Yeah.
This movie would benefit from about a 10, 15 minute snipping. But once you get into the Forbidden Valley, it picks up. Like, it's basically nonstop action for the final 35, 40 minutes. And it begins to get entertaining. As far as I'm concerned, it almost 100% makes up for the slow part of the first, like, couple 50 minutes or so of the movie. Yeah. Like, it goes. There's a lot of stuff to look at, a lot of dinosaur action. Yeah, it up for all the boring crap at the beginning.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Well, you ready to do the final thoughts and rating?
I suppose.
Unless you have something else.
No, not really.
Okay.
I thought maybe you would.
Like I said, I don't really have much to add on, because, I mean, it's a Ray Harryhausen movie. What do you expect?
It's not just that. I would say it's a Cowboys versus dinosaur movie.
Well, and that too. And that's kind of one of the things I just want to say is that, I mean, I mean, a lot of people that are probably watching us, I don't know, maybe a handful or something of the sort, and
Just one person.
and in any normie out there should at least know the name Ray Harryhausen. I mean, it should be a household name, for many years, because when it comes to his name, you know what you're going to get as far as stop motion animation and pretty good films in that regard. Although there can be some that are a bit a stinker here and there, but you know what you're going to expect with a Ray Harryhausen. And with Valley of Gwangi, and with the AI answer and stuff, it was sort of a long time in the making before its release, and with the Western and dinosaur slash sci-fi sort of blend for this type of film, it's a pretty unique, interesting take on both genres and blending them into one. And I think that's one thing that we don't really see a whole lot nowadays is, kind of taking a gamble and kind of blending different genres and trying to form something a bit unique, interesting, and maybe something new, like some kind of sub-genre would be born out of it. It would be nice if we can try to start doing that again instead of rehashing, remaking some of the same things over and over again, and kind of all these try to kind of get away, take a break from these superhero movies and stuff that we see nowadays. But yeah, with this particular movie, it would have been nice if they would have done maybe a bit more with it. But I mean, with it being kind of around the 60s and 70s when this film was released, they didn't really have all the necessary resources and stuff back then and stuff. If it was made today, I mean, probably would have been a bit better, although they probably wouldn't have a whole lot of resources, but maybe gone in with the whole visual effects, CGI, and all that stuff. But it's a unique story. The characters, yeah, you can probably go so-so on it, but just with them backstabbing one another and all that stuff, and kind of, going with their own interests and all that stuff, it kind of throws you into a loop and all that stuff. And then as far as some of the visual effects, yeah, it'd be preferable to watch the movie for the visual effects on a DVD format rather than an upscale HD version in a Blu-ray. The score to the movie is decent enough with some of the blendings of Western and sci-fi of like the 50s and 60s type of films here. And then along with the visual effects of this, with stop motion, you know what you're expecting in it. But with Harryhausen, it's pretty really good in that regard. And the battles with the dinosaurs, and then Gwangi and the elephant, and then also the life-size pteranodon that I mentioned earlier. It was pretty detailed for the things that they wanted to do in a particular scene with Carlos battling the pteranodon. Although I can not say the same thing when it came to the little Gwangi figure for the scene when it was knocked out there. But yeah, overall, I would say the Valley of Gwangi movie is pretty decent. Something that I probably would see once in a while and stuff. Not something that's would be consistent, like every week or something of the sort. I would say just once in a while. I would say at least once every year, every other year, or every year.
Every 15 years, you know?
That, or 30 or whatever, how long you've haven't seen it. So with that, as far as the rating, I gave this movie a B minus. I think I think that's a pretty decent thing. I mean, there's a lot of things that are good going for this movie, but then there are some things that are a bit of kind of a so-so and sometimes a hit and miss sort of thing. But I say a B minus is a good rating for Valley of Gwangi.
That's kind of interesting because the way you talked, I'm like, oh, this sounds like a C to C minus territory that you're going to give it. The way you were talking, then it's like B minus, and it's like, that seems kind of high considering you're just like, meh, on it. All right. Here's my final thoughts. The Valley of Gwangi is one of those movies that I have a bit of a soft spot for. As mentioned earlier, this was a movie I saw a few times as a child, and while I was never fully in love with the movie, I enjoyed it enough. Throughout the years, I have only seen the movie a handful of times, and my opinions on it are ones that lean more towards finding the movie to be adequate and nothing overly entertaining. As I watched the movie this time with a bit more of a keen eye, I realized that there really aren't any good characters to speak of here except maybe Lope. Even the gypsies, who I think are the closest to resembling anything of good guys here, end up being portrayed in an evil manner with the unlocking of Gwangi's cage. On top of that, I am not a fan of westerns. I find the genre to be overly boring and virtually every movie to be the same in their general storytelling. The movie also takes more time than I think is needed to get to the Forbidden Valley and to get us to Gwangi. It takes us nearly 50 minutes to get there. I will say, though, that once the movie gets us to the valley, it's nonstop action the rest of the way. The creatures are animated wonderfully by legendary stop-motion animator Ray Harryhausen, and their interactions with the live-action actors match to near perfection. The fights between Gwangi and the Styracosaurus, and later between Gwangi and the elephant, are incredibly staged and brutal. Excuse me. I genuinely feel some heartache at the brutality in the dying Styracosaurus and elephant. Even more so when Gwangi itself is screaming in pain and terror as it's being burned alive in the cathedral. As for the characters, they end up being archetypes. There is no real depth to them, and we get a typical romance story that doesn't make me feel like it's genuine. I come away from that romance believing that the writers couldn't think of a better way to try and do some character development, so they wrote in a stereotypical love story that seems really out of place for the most part. Overall, The Valley of Gwangi is a movie that should have been trimmed down to about 80 minutes rather than running at 96 minutes. The characters are just good enough to move the film along, but are nothing special. The creatures are animated and inserted to the film beautifully and are, of course, the main attraction here. It's a pretty entertaining movie with a bit of an interesting concept. For a dinosaur movie, it's pretty decent. As a side note, contrast this with the movie The Beast of Hollow Mountain, which was made 13 years earlier and most likely served as an inspiration for The Valley of Gwangi. That movie is really utter garbage, and The Valley of Gwangi, while by no means perfect, learned from the mistakes of that movie. In conclusion, The Valley of Gwangi is worth your time if you're a fan of dinosaur movies, and I gave it a C.
That's a bit
basically average.
That's
basically average.
That's a lower score than I kind of thought you would give it. I would say at least maybe a B-2 or a C+.
I thought about a C+, but again, it's the Western stuff and the fact that it took us close to an hour to get to the valley is that those are the two reasons why I dropped it. And then, it's just, yeah. Western took it down to a C+.
Western was a big chunk.
I hate it so much that
it was an automatic deduction from the start.
This is a cowboy movie. We're already down to a C+. You don't have much further to go.
But yeah, it's like with my rating, it's kind of a borderline with a B- and a C plus. But I mean, with how Ray Harryhausen movies go and how I kind of like some of those.
The way you say that though makes it seem like it's a bad thing. Like you're almost kind of connoting like it's like, yeah, Ray Harryhausen simple movies. It's like he's involved in some pretty good movies.
That's kind of the reason how I'm going about it. I think you're a bit confused in the way.
Well, I'm just going off of like how you're saying it though.
Because the way how I'm saying is they're pretty good. They are pretty good.
Okay,
I mean,
good.
it's like you kind of know what you're expecting when it comes to Ray Harryhausen movies.
Okay, I guess. I'll let it slide.
Good. I hope you do that from now on.
I'm not going to give you a free pass every time. If you're being an idiot, I'll call it out. But anyway,
same goes for you.
But anyways, before Jason does the final housekeeping thing, thank you so much for joining us again. The next time, by the way, because I think Valentine's is on a Saturday. Oh, come on. Is on a Saturday this year. It is. Do you want to do the next podcast like on maybe the 15th? On a Sunday?
I'll have to see because I know I usually go with the church with the parents and stuff. I'll kind of have to see with that. May have to do maybe a later starting point. We'll have to see when it gets to that point. I'll kind of talk with you when it gets close to that Valentine's weekend. See how you feel and then how I feel.
I'm just gonna say this: we're either gonna do it either the 15th or the 21st. Actually, yeah, either the 15th or the 21st. So we'll do that. You'll find out when you'll find out. So, but it's Reptilicus. When we get done here in a moment, Jason and I are going to decide on a show we're going to do, and then we'll kind of get some things figured out as far as other podcasts to do in the meantime after Reptilicus. So that way in the weeks, if not however many months we feel that we have some backup shows to still do while we're working on the show. And then we will cover the show either in one or multiple podcasts, odd number of time down the road.
Yeah. So with that, if you haven't done so, make sure to subscribe and as well as smash the like button. And you can also follow us on the following streaming and audio platforms that you see down below. And you can also follow us on the following social medias there. And you can also find both video and audio versions of our podcast episodes in any other videos right at our own website at gogokaijushow.com.
Thank you so much for joining us. We'll see you here in a few weeks.
I'll see you guys next time.